Do, do, do. Sorry, the recording doesn't want to kick off. There we go. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for this fabulous webinar with our lovely Elizabeth Verwey. She will be doing a presentation today on Plan a Podcast Tour. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We will be recording. If you do not wish to be part of the recording, please feel free to turn off your camera. If you do have any questions and you don't feel comfortable asking them, please feel free to put them in the chat. This is an interactive webinar, so you are more than welcome to unmute yourself, ask your questions, keep your video on, and interact. Otherwise, Elizabeth, take it away.
Thank you so much, Kylie. So yes, I'm excited about this concept of a podcast tour. And so I first of all want hands up of who listens to podcasts now. Angela, Mary Margaret, Cindy, and Sylvia. Welcome, Sylvia. Nice to see you. And yeah, it's awesome. So we are listening to podcasts. We don't know about a couple other people. Well, I guess Gail and Nilu, but I'll assume that one of them is listening to podcasts, and therefore most of us are. And the idea of any product or service can be promoted using other people's audiences. And so who has a product here? A product?
Yes.
Sylvia, you have a product, and other people have services. Is everyone else services? Okay.
And services too.
So, oh, Kylie's distracting me in the chat.
I have a fabulous distraction.
So yes, we can be entertained. We gather information. There's all sorts of reasons to listen to podcasts. And it's a great place to talk about your service or your product. But it doesn't serve you to speak directly to your service, right? What's beside your service? What value add can you give your customers or your, potential prospects? What can you give them that they're interested in? So, you know, when I've been a business mentor for about 25 years, and I've let that go, but I would give, you know, where to network and 10 tips on networking. I would give that kind of thing on a podcast or a workshop. And then everyone's like, oh, wow, she really knows her stuff and I can trust her. You know, you're looking for people to get to know you, trust you, and like you. And or know you, like you, and trust you is what's commonly said. And by doing these interviews, you're having exposure and people hear your name and that sort of thing. And actually, I see Cindy O, Kingdom Vocal Vibes. Is that a podcast or is that a choir? Or I'm distracted by that.
Actually, it is a podcast, which is why I joined, because the title of the webinar didn't really tell me what this is about. I host and produce a podcast.
Fantastic. And how long have you been doing that, Cindy?
Over 2 years.
Oh, congratulations. That's great.
Yeah.
And your audience, who's in your audience?
As far as listeners, it's people from different parts of the world. It's people who are in relationship with God and people who are clueless about him, who are afraid of him, who are angry with him, who just don't even know what's the what. And so my conversations are with different people from all over the world about
that sounds amazing.
All sorts of cool things. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Great. And so what I want us to accomplish today is I want you to think about your own service, and we can use an example and brainstorm a little. Think about your own service and what would make a good podcast interview or a workshop or that sort of thing. But oh, actually, let's start with that. Okay. Who wants to volunteer?
Sure.
Oh, Sylvia, great. Okay. Sylvia, what is your service?
Okay, so my service is helping women over 50 get in touch with themselves and get past traumas so that they can have a joy-filled life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great. Oh, I love it that you said over 50. So you already know your target market, and that was going to be my next question. And what kind of thing could you talk about? What kind of subject could you talk about that just introduces people to you, but doesn't, give away all your skills and abilities?
So when I typically am called on as a podcast guest to talk about empaths and how to cope as an empath, or intuition and how to hone your intuition.
Wow. Yes. Yeah. So if you're already being called upon by other people for podcasts, that's amazing. Most of us aren't so lucky. But I think you're right, like the intuition piece, or the other one that you mentioned,
Empath.
empaths, is a good topic for you that, encourages people to come and buy your services. Now, Angela, what about you? What's your service?
I'm a mental health therapist and I specialize in couples and sex therapy. So I would like to focus on relationship and couples relationships. And I've already designed the first 50 podcasts, the topics and the content. I'm just polishing what it might look like and waiting for someone who's willing to produce them for me.
Oh, okay. So you want to make your own podcast?
Absolutely. Clients are asking for it. They're kind of demanding it at this point. So yeah, I would like to make my own.
Right. And
Mhm.
are there any podcasts out there already dealing with what you want to deal with?
Yeah, but I think what the difference is going to be is that I have 4 offices and they're all in very small towns. And there's something about that small town feel that people are kind of saying, "Hey, but we want you to do it because you're local and we see you at the grocery store and we have connections." So I think it's more for the people in the towns where I service. Maybe it'll grow bigger, who knows? But
So you don't meet people online now?
80 to 85% of my new clients are all in person.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really changed. We still offer virtual, but the demand is definitely in person now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a podcast will reach further, and then you have
Yes.
more online clients, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And who's your target market?
So very good question. Um, I'm thinking probably the 35 to 55 age range.
Okay.
But to be fair, the topics of the podcast really can be any age of relationship,
No, I know, but
right?
it's
But
always
yeah,
better if you're
yeah,
focused in, and mostly women, I would guess.
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think you're not wrong.
We drive the
Uh-huh.
relationship usually.
Yeah,
It's
it's true. Very
yeah,
true.
yeah. Okay, cool. And so I did design this thinking about people who had a product or service who wanted to get into different podcasts, right? And how to do that,
Yeah.
rather than Sylvia is already getting asked, but maybe you can replicate that and get into more, and maybe in the US or in Europe and that sort of thing. And Angela wants to produce a podcast. So it's a little bit different than what I obviously expressed in my promo. What I have people do is I have them get really specific with their target market, and then go and use either you can use Google, but I use this AI tool called Perplexity, but you could use Google and just literally say, podcasts that target 35 to 55 year old women around sexuality, like if you're using Perplexity. Yeah, that sort of thing gives you the starting of a list. And I started with that list, but I've added to it as I've done my own research, finding podcasts. I was coached to only choose podcasts that had 100 or more episodes. because they've typically built a following and an audience. They wouldn't keep doing it if they don't have 100, if they're not building an audience after 100. But, you know, do your research. How many downloads, you know, take a look, listen to a podcast on one that you've targeted so that you can think about how your topic, and keep it in mind that it's your side topic, you know, so that they get to know, like, and trust you. And then listen to 1 or 2 episodes. And so be sure it's a good fit for your brand. I mean, Cindy is a good example, right? There's a branding there that some people would really like to be involved with, and some people may not. And I'm thinking of myself, whenever I'm listening to a podcast and there's swearing in it, I'm not interested in being on that podcast. You know, if the host is, I mean, if a guest was swearing, I'd listen to another one. But, you know, if the host has got a kind of edgy, raunchy vibe, although in my stand-up comedy that I'm writing right now, I'm a little edgy, but that's not what I want out there in the podcast. I just started a class and I'm having the time of my life. Anyway, you won't see me on YouTube soon. But so then when you have this, you know, golden list of the people that you want to promote, how do you approach them? So you have to develop some collateral. Now, this can be on your website if you're really ambitious, but it can be just a 1-page handout or whatever that you develop. And in there, you want to have a little blurb about you, not a big bio with all your credibility and blah, blah, blah. It's actually, Cindy can probably tell us that it's not necessary because we can research anybody we want to research online. So we have a little, like, almost like a tagline, or no, more than a tagline, 2 or 3 sentences to establish credibility, yes, but, you know, that sort of capable guest feel. And then you, sorry, I've lost my train of thought here. Oh yeah, then you say potential introductions. Well, first of all, your topic. Then you give maybe 3 points about your topic. So Sylvia, you said intuition. So maybe three examples or 3 topics that you'll cover. So you've got your topic with 3 points, and then an introduction. You could put a short introduction or a longer introduction, like, so the host has a couple of options that they know how to introduce you. And in the longer introduction, you can have more of your credibility builders, you know, if you've got a degree or, you know, a book or that sort of thing, so they can see that there's just a short introduction or the longer one. And how you add value, right? Because every podcaster wants true value in the content that they're developing. Is that true, Cindy? I don't even see you nodding your head. I thought you'd be, yes, I want value. I want value. It's so,
I don't want to be distracting.
yeah. And then potential questions, because podcasters have ideas of general questions, but you could give specific questions and just sample questions, and then they have something to go on. And then at the end, if you want further bio information, just put, you know, you can find out more and put some websites or that sort of thing, but really keep it straightforward. What else do you look for, Cindy, when you're looking for the ideal podcast host? Or sorry, ideal podcast guest?
Well, this is probably going to blow your minds. I don't pick my guests.
Okay.
No, God gives me he highlights a person, he gives me and these are people I don't know in parts of the world I've never been. And so, because it's not about me, it's not about what I want to target, it's about what he has to share with people at his time. It's actually really amazing.
Okay,
So
that's amazing.
yeah, I can't, as far as questions, the conversations we're having are real time. Nothing's discussed. I don't research my guests and
Oh,
every
okay.
conversation.
That does blow my mind.
So yeah, it's I don't everything I'm doing is not what, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's right. You're not fitting into the typical podcast person who will do that little research and that sort of thing. But I totally get it. Yeah, thank you. And so, but think about how you can add value once you do secure, because you're going to approach them either on social media or directly through their website, that sort of thing, and say, I would comment on a podcast episode that you listen to. I would, of course, compliment them on, congratulations on having 200 episodes, or that sort of thing, to make them understand that you've done a little research, and then mention why you would be a good match for their podcast, why their listeners want to hear about intuition, or another example. And then add value by either having a handout, or there might be something that you've prepared for another purpose, a booklet or that sort of thing, a tip sheet, something that you can offer their podcast listeners so that they can follow up and get to know you a little bit more. Yeah. And I also, if I get to talk to the podcast host, sometimes it's just email, I mention, I'd really like to mention during our interview, I'd really like to mention my new book coming out in the fall, or whatever next for me, right? Because there's always something next. I'm a serial entrepreneur. But the thing that's important, don't spring it on your podcast host, just mentioning something during the podcast, trying to make it seem natural, because they'll have probably edited it out. But if you let them know, then the podcast hosts have been so generous with me, saying, what's next for you, Elizabeth? Or do you have anything coming up? And it gives me an invitation to talk about, sorry, Cindy, you're muted, just so you know, in case there was anything. Yeah, okay. And so, that gives me an invitation to talk about what I'm coming up. And I don't do what's coming up, and I don't do, in your face promotion. It's just like if they want to know more. Sylvia's laughing at me. Am I doing in your face promotion?
No, I just resonate with it very deeply.
Yeah. Some people are just too hard sell, and it's just it gives me my skin a little crawl, right? Yeah, so I do make it, I don't hide that intention that I'm asking to be on their podcast, because I would like to mention something, right? And like, also think about timelines. Like, my book is coming out in the fall, October, and I'm starting to book podcasts now. Like, I'm starting to talk to podcast hosts, because they're saying, oh, okay, well, we have a booking date in July, and then it'll come out in September, or it'll come out, there is a time lag. Like, if you want to promote something in October, you don't start asking in September, right? Yeah, I mean, these are all sort of a chain of events. Did I lose anybody along the way, or some people came in late? So please feel free to ask me questions. We can brainstorm. I can answer questions.
Yes.
Yes, Karen?
No, I didn't ask a question.
Oh, okay, I thought maybe you did. I think Tina and Lara, were you able to catch up with us there?
Hi there. I caught a little bit about it, about your list of tips and tricks. So I'm furiously writing down a couple of things here. Thanks.
Right.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Okay. Yeah. So you're
Yeah.
borrowing other people's audiences essentially, and you want to pick the right podcast for your prospects, right? You want to find people who are talking to your audience already. And
Did
then,
you discuss some like mediums or platforms in terms of YouTube, like a podcast on YouTube versus podcast on Spotify and what that reach would be, or even audio versus video?
no, I'm sorry, I have done both, but I haven't analyzed that. Has anybody here had experience with that or information about that? Sylvia, you said you had a podcast coach. Have you
Yeah, so I have a podcast as well, 10minutes2joy.com. And now I'm blanking because I just did what I'm uncomfortable doing in terms of blanket telling people what I have. What are you
Oh,
looking?
I was just
Oh,
asking if you had any, Lara was asking about, YouTube podcasts versus, I mean, I think they all have their own audience, Lara,
yes.
right? I've done them all. I've done Facebook, podcasts, YouTube, audio, video. I just did a video one recently.
I think it really varies according to whoever's created it. So I have mine on Podbean going out onto all the things, and I have it on um, YouTube. However, with YouTube, you have to do a lot more work to get it out there. So if you're thinking, if she's thinking about creating her own podcast, that more people have them that aren't video than do have video, but upcoming is videos a much more wanted or desired kind of medium. Does that help?
Yeah, thanks, Sylvia. I didn't catch your podcast name, but we also I have a co-hosted podcast called Munching on Molecules. So we just launched. We're at 30. We're just publishing 31 episodes, and we've been in the podcasting since for a year now and a year and a half. But yeah, exploring all the different platforms and how to engage our target audience and who really is the audience, right? Because really understanding the data behind who's listening and how long they're listening and what kind of content. So curious to hear what everyone's
Yeah,
experience has
Lara,
been.
who's an ideal guest for you?
So our podcast focuses on food entrepreneurs all across Canada and the US as well. Also looking at food technology and innovation. I'm a food scientist and my co-host is a research chef. So we try to bring the different kinds of things that's happening across Canada in terms of the food industry and the culinary space as well. So, but trying to see whether, that is we've had a whole bunch of associations as well join the podcast. So really understanding what kind of content is driving our listeners and who is our listeners, right? Because you can only get so much data.
Have you done a survey with your listeners?
We are actually working with a UBC Masters of Economics student to do some marketing qualitative survey. I apologize, I'm not on video. My internet's a little wonky today, so
Oh, that's
otherwise
okay.
I'd be on video.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the next step is a qual survey to really figure out who is listening and what kind of content is bringing value, as you mentioned, Elizabeth.
Yeah, that'll help you a lot, Lara, to target the right guests for your show. Have you got people approaching you, or are you still approaching people?
But both ways. We've had a lot of referrals. Both of us have been in the food manufacturing space for 20 years, so we've sort of accumulated a lot of guests or guests to be lined up because you can only do so much while really working on your regular work. Um,
That's right.
but yeah, I like that you said about the time lag. I put a note there because we don't it's just the two of us who do all the editing, and it does take a while. And sometimes our guests ask, "When is it being released?" Because I want to time it with marketing, and yeah, we forget about that.
Yeah, yeah. And you may want to take a look at Ripen, Rippen, Ripen, and
Okay.
they match students. I think it's 70 hours. They match students to do things for you. So, I mean,
Oh.
I don't know what is more, but they pay the students. The government pays the students $17.50. Last time I was, I haven't done it for a bit, an hour for the 70 hours, but then you are meeting with them I always met with them once a week, and they're university students and they full-time students, but I found it very valuable, the research that they could do and that sort of thing.
Oh, great. Okay, I'll write that down. I see there's a address on the chat there. Thanks. Thank
Oh,
you.
thanks. Oh my goodness. That's
Is,
awesome.
excuse me, what you mentioned, is that government federal or provincial? It must be provincial because I haven't heard anything about that here.
That's a really good question, but I think it is federal because I worked with some students in BC. You can do
Okay.
it two different ways. There's this program within Ripen called Level Up, and that's where they pay the students. The Ripen mainstream kind of stuff is classes are like a project. Like I had one class do some research and that sort of thing. I've had PhD students do some research on podcasts actually at one point for another project I was doing, which was really interesting.
So
But
Ripen is the government program?
Ripen, yeah, Rippen.
Okay.
Kylie has added an Ontario specific one called Advance Ontario. So that's pretty cool. Kylie's amazing. She's like an eavesdropper, and somehow she can be doing other work, monitoring the chat. She's amazing. So yeah, look into that. But yeah, so I mean, if there's no more questions, I'll talk about some of the pitfalls of looking for podcasts to be on.
Before you do that, you
Yeah.
spelled Ripen Rippen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Oh no,
It's
Mary
two
Margaret's
eyes.
saying
It's
no.
RIIPEN.
I'm sorry, RR. Thank you.
Riipen?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm a poor speller.
great. Yeah, okay.
If I had a flip chart, I'd underline it in red because
That's okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Come on, this is your chance. No? Okay. Then I wanted to talk about some of the pitfalls. When you start looking for podcast tours or podcast guest spots, somehow all of a sudden these people come in to say, hey, I'm a podcast booker, like a PR person for podcasts, and I can get you on the best podcasts. It'll only cost you $700. And it's so amazing. Like their marketing material is slick and that sort of thing. And yeah, sure, if you have a spare $700 and you have a product or service that you think can offset that cost, then it's a good way to go. I've had a couple of offers like that. I also have been approached by people who have exactly my target audience, and they charge $199 to each podcast host. Or sorry, guest. I'm getting mixed up. Each podcast guest. So each podcast guest pays $200, and then she can offset some of her costs. And I even went back to one saying, hey, I'm a business mentor. I could discuss getting a sponsor instead of charging your guests. And she came back and she said, we want the podcast guests to have skin in the game. So I guess it's easier to close that sale with a podcast guest than it is for a sponsor. But, or maybe she's never tried getting a sponsor. But I just want to say that I wouldn't jump at those. I'm not jumping at those because there's lots of podcasts out there. They need content. We forget, like we're eager to talk to them, but they need good content. So if you can give a good presentation, you've got solid content, nice delivery, practice that, take an improv class so that you can think quick on your feet. And I did a podcast recently about this little short documentary I did about my friend, and the podcast host threw in a question that I was like not expecting at all. It was supposed to be what attracted me to doing this documentary and what the experience was like. And then because she's a financial planner, she talked about she asked me about how this 100-year-old planned her finances. I was just like, I don't know. But I did remember in one conversation, I had mentioned that my grocery bill from when I was newlywed in 1975 was $16 a week. And she said that in 1945, when she was a newlywed, her budget was $5 a week. So we had fun talking about that on the podcast, but that's only because I remembered that and feel comfortable improving, right? So. Mary Margaret, did you have a question, or are you? You're muted.
I'm sorry. I don't think so. Is my hand up? No.
No.
I just find it very interesting. I'm not very experienced with podcasts at all. But I get a lot of questions from clients about podcasts and either making podcasts or listening to specific podcasts. I should share with everyone that I am the business development coordinator at Paro. So I'm really interested in sending them to someone who knows lots about this, because I don't.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, it's a whole new world, but it's certainly better than trying to get on mainstream media, with media releases and sending them out to people, because a media interview can be, 2 minutes, 5 minutes is good.
Yeah.
In the podcast, it's more like a 20-minute, a half an hour show in the end, which,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Oh, I'm a rapt listener, Elizabeth.
A new frontier.
Oh, jeez.
Yes, Sylvia.
A couple of comments. I have paid and played, and in my personal experience, the podcast host has a tendency to make themselves the expert and you the lowly person that's on their podcast. That's just my experience. I no longer pay to play. One of my challenges that I've had when I'm a guest is after the podcast. And I've had them where people have them go live and don't notify me they've gone live. So I can't support them and share the word on my social media, but it's almost like I haven't even been a guest. And
Wow.
and then, or they say, oh, we'll send lots of love on you, but they do an Instagram story and that's all they do. So I don't know if you have any ideas or suggestions on how to help me be more successful so that I can mutually support them and their podcast, but also I'm actually being able to hook in.
Right. Well, that's a really great question. I'm going to write down the word collaboration, right? I would say I would approach my next podcast person saying, I would like to collaborate with you. and because I do have an audience, and I would like to promote your podcast when I'm on it, and hopefully people will pick up on signing up for downloads. But yeah, I think making it more of a collaboration rather than a guest spot, right? But yeah, that's unfortunate. I have been notified when people have put the podcast up, but I've asked specifically to be notified because I have an audience that I can promote it to, right? Thanks. That's a great question. Yes, Cindy.
Sylvia, that is great that you've moved away from that pay to play, because it's dishonest, and it doesn't feel. I've had opportunities for that too, that, oh, if you want to pay to be a guest, then you can, but if I'm paying, then I'm not really, you didn't seek me, and this isn't really of any interest to anybody except your pocketbook. And so that's great that the experiences were bad enough that you've decided not to go there, because it doesn't really model who you are or what you're about or what you have to give to people, right? Because people will find out, oh, she was on all these podcasts, but she paid to do it. So really, how relevant is it to me? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I'm going to have a page on my website. I'm building a new website. So before, when I was on a podcast, I would share it on my social media maybe, or, do some kind of promotion in my newsletter. But now my plan is, in the new website, is to have the podcast links on a page, so that people can listen, and I have enough material, so to speak, that I will be different in different podcast interviews, right?
I have a question.
Yeah.
What you just said about your new website. So you've been with Peril, and I think there's a Peril rep on this podcast. One of my questions in starting my own business is, does Peril cover website cost and domain cost, or does Peril have a link that everyone links to, everyone who's a Peril member? Is there a link where we all link in to feed off the Peril domain and their website?
No, there isn't, Karen. But tell me more about your business so that I can think about your needs for a website, because I have a cheap and cheerful solution that some people are using. So what's your service?
Yeah, I'm down to deciding if I'm down to thinking I'll use Google, but I'm always open to other options because Google offers the domain and the landing page like a lot of companies would do. However, my company is called Hikes and Sites, and it's pretty simple. I haven't done it yet, except without giving it a name. It's picking up tourists and taking them on small hikes and sightseeing. Yeah, so I don't have anything online yet, except I think my Facebook might mention it, and my LinkedIn, just so that I have a presence with the name Hikes and Sites.
Okay. And is
Yeah.
it SITES or SIGH?
No, SITES, Hikes
Oh.
and Sites.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
And where are you based?
I'm in St. John's, Newfoundland.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so I mean, people are probably, you're going there, people are going to your website. Are you going to want it to be on search engines and that sort of thing?
Well, I don't know enough about that,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Well,
I thought it was on a search engine automatically.
Yeah,
Once you publish it, it's on a search engine, isn't it?
Well, it takes months to get there, but Canva, CANVA,
Yes,
Canva is a very easy way to build a website, but it's not as accessible to the bots and spiders that come in to do the search engines. So if you had like a small ad with, there's probably St. John's sites or St. John's Facebook groups, that sort of thing. If you had a small domain, like a little bit about what you're doing and the domain on those Facebook groups or those advertising, like sometimes you can do a classified ad in the newspaper and or a special interest paper, and it's amazing the value you can get from that.
Yeah, it's just getting, excuse me, sorry, it's just getting the right help to do that too, because this is something that I'm not versed in, and I don't have the contacts here in St. John's. There's lots of them out there,
Yeah.
but I'm not connected. So this is what I'm hoping Peril can do for me, is connect me with in the circle up. I need to circle up with somebody who can help lead me into that area. And what I
Okay.
have to do is really basic. I have my logo, I have my content, I have my pictures, and I just want a landing page and a domain and a
Right.
QR code. And that
Right.
will offset my business cards and my brochures so I can get all of that printed.
Right. Yeah, there's Kylie's put some search engine optimization, a starter guide on here, but Wix is a great user-friendly, no tech web development background website builder, and it helps you set up SEO as well. And Pero, yeah, once you get into a circle, then you can apply for some funding that will be very helpful to you. And Fiverr, Fiverr, is that right, Kylie? Fiverr.
Yep.
You can ask somebody remotely to help you set up a website, and it's pretty economical. Like if you look for a website developer, like I can give you a whole list of those, but they're going to be in the, $1,000 to
Yeah, I know those people.
10,000.
Yep.
But you could probably get somebody on Fiverr for $200.
Yeah. Like I know that I can build my own because I did it a few years back, but I took it down. But I've just sort of lost touch in what the best route would be. I talked about Wix to another tech that I here in St. John's I spoke with on the phone, and he suggested Wix. However, once I mentioned how comfortable I was with Google, he said, well, Google might be the best. Google could be the best alternative for you then, because
Yeah,
you're
I don't have
familiar.
experience with the Google building a website. But Canva, as I said, a few of my clients while I was with Pero built a one-page website on Canva, and they, because people were driving, she was advertising and people would go to that web page. It wasn't like she needed to have the SEO in place.
And a lot of those companies, I'll be quick here, they're offering a different price now to for the domain, as opposed to there's a price for the domain. There was always a price for the domain. But yesterday I noticed that Google wants $17 for the domain and $24.95, something like that, a month for the website.
For the hosting?
And for the hosting the website. And you look on Wix and others, and they're all very similar. It's similar now to a Netflix, you have to pay a monthly charge instead of a yearly charge for that website. And this is what I'm wondering too, if there's an easier alternative and a least expensive one. Because in the get-go, I'm paying the money up front, whether I get a grant later or whatever the case. Yeah.
Sylvia was asking in the chat if it was a Google website or a Google page that you were referring to.
Well, I'm looking at either. I'm looking at starting with a web page. with just one landing page. And if as the business grows, you know, have more pages. Yeah,
Yeah.
if
And
that's
who is
possible.
your business support person at Peril?
Well, she's finished her contract, so I don't have anyone right now.
Ah, well, if you
Mhm.
phone the head office, I think they met Mary Margaret, would they be able to set her up with somebody to have a deeper conversation about this?
Uh,
Probably.
I'm sorry for sure. I'm assuming that, Karen, you're probably already in our database, and I will for sure reach out and
Okay.
to Melissa and have you reassigned
Mhm.
a business growth advisor for sure. I'll do that
Okay.
today.
Thank
That
you,
would be
Mary.
great. I appreciate that because it's been a while and I tried connecting. It's been a while since I've connected with Peril because of other emergencies that I've been managing. And now that
Okay.
that's slowed down, I need to connect and to get this thing going.
Sure.
Great, good. And Sylvia had a really good example, good suggestion here. Oh, she wonders if Tourism Newfoundland has mini websites.
Well, Tourism Newfoundland is like Tourism Ontario, you know, any other tourism really. There's lots of websites, but it's not my website. And to connect with Tourism Newfoundland, that's a whole different ball of wax.
But do they have, like, can you place a little ad with them?
Well, that's another story too. Yes, I can, but I'm not ready to do that yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not up and running yet. You know, I want to prove myself I want to prove me to myself before I start placing ads with tourism.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've hiked all over the country, but when it comes to actually offering the services at a price, I want to be able to, I want to be confident in what I'm doing before I do appreciate what you're suggesting. And yes, all of these things are possible.
Yeah.
But I'm just, you know, I'm still developing this and I'm at sort of at the stages now where I just need to get a landing page and a domain and publish it and start, you
Well, I
know,
know
distributing my brochures and my business cards. Yeah.
I know they're ripe for the picking. The tourist season in Newfoundland has opened, and you know, I can rent a car here in Toronto for $4,000 to drive to Newfoundland and back in a month, or I can rent a car in Newfoundland if I'm lucky enough to find one for a week for $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
So people are going to be clamoring for guided hikes and sites. So you know,
Or
I would
or
I
you
would
can
do
call
some
me
beta
and
testing.
you can call me and I can be your driver with a car.
Oh, listen, I'm easy to find on the web. Send me an email.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I'll just mention briefly about my book. If you're interested, take a look at elizabethverwey.com, and that will you can sign up for a newsletter. And yeah, it would be great if you're interested in knowing more. It's my third book, but my first nonfiction. The others were business books. And this is a subject, it's all a subject that fascinates me. I interviewed 53 people who had taken care of their ex when they needed help. And 30 stories are in the book. And it's quite fascinating. And that's
Okay.
all I'll say. Anyway,
Could I just mention, Elizabeth, I'm sorry to
of course,
interrupt you.
Mary. Yes.
But Karen, I have tried to find you in our database. I can't find you. So I wonder, I've put my email
Margaret.
address in the chat. So can you please be in touch with me by email? That's all.
In the chat. So will I see the chat? I'm not seeing the chat right now. What do I do to get that?
On the
Oh,
bottom bar.
it's right here.
Yeah, there.
Yeah. Okay, because I'm not watching the chat right now. I have okay, here we are. Show
And this is
chat
actually a great time
previews.
to do a little pause because Elizabeth, this is your 5-minute warning before we have to wrap up.
Yes, for sure. I'm just correcting the website because I just want that elizabethverwey.com takes you to the page about my book only. So yeah, thank you. Yes, well, I'm so happy that you came, everyone. I see that Cindy had to jump off, but thank you so much for your questions and your interest in this topic. Hope it goes well, and happy podcasting. I'll be here for a few minutes if you're interested in asking another question.
Okay, and I'm looking at chat to find out where Mary's email is. So
Oh,
maybe
yes.
she can just speak it to me because my chat is
Yes, I'll speak it to
kind
you.
of limited.
It's S as in
Yeah.
Sam, H E R I S,
Mhm. F as in Floyd.
S as in Sam,
Okay.
E, another S.
Another S as in Sam. SHERISES.
Yes, at pero.ca.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes,
Thanks, Elizabeth.
yes, no problem. Okay,
Okay.
I have one question, Elizabeth, if I may.
of course.
Because of course I'm much more used to working in, and if this is totally off topic, just please let me know. On Zoom and doing Zoom interactions, delivering biz camps and webinars and so on. And I am always looking for new ways to engage my audience or my participants. And I'm just wondering if that is something that you need to think about during a podcast. Is engagement a really important aspect of what you're doing?
Well, you're engaging with the interviewer. So
Right.
you're having a conversation one-on-one, and they're usually asking you questions. You're answering. I don't think I've ever asked a podcast host a question back. They've only asked me and had a conversation. Sometimes I might make a joke that requires them to respond to me, but generally, Sylvia, what would you say?
So, Mary Margaret, may I ask you a question? Are you
Sure.
asking about, like, so on Zoom, if I'm doing a webinar or a teaching, I might have you do breakout rooms or that sort of thing. Is that what you're meaning? Like having extra stuff? No, you wouldn't. And the reason for it is most people listen to podcasts through podcast apps. So for
Right.
them to go off from it, they may lose the actual podcast.
Okay.
So it would be more what Elizabeth talked about in saying, and you can get this free download of 10 tips to bloody, bloody, bloody on my website, bloody, bloody, bloody. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes. Thank you for that.
Hi, it's Lara. I would also add, in terms of engagement, I've seen or listened to podcasts that are live, and they note, so they engage their audience by having them comment, and they would then pick up the comments on their live podcast page, and they would talk about it. That's how they would engage the audience. I've personally never done it, looking to test that one, but only when your audience is big enough, right, to have that
Sure.
that much engagement.
Sure.
But that's what I've seen.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lara.
I have gone on some Instagram lives, and that's the same. People are typing in questions and comments during the live. It's very wild and wonderful. It's more like a roller coaster.
Well, thank you for that.
That's when the improv comes in really handy, right, Elizabeth?
That's right. Well, thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank
And
you.
Elizabeth.
Thank you.
have you got another interview or another workshop coming up?
I don't, but just
Oh.
do a quick little wrap up. So give me 2 seconds. Thank you so
Okay.
much, everybody, for coming today. And thank you so much, Elizabeth, for your fabulous presentation. As always, I have put in the chat there, if you would like a copy of today's recording or any of our past recordings, please feel free to send me an email at communications@pero.ca, and I will send you a link to this recording once it is available, as well as a link to our 2025 webinar playlist where you can access all of our past webinars, as well as we update it weekly with all the new webinars, so you can keep up to date on that. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming today. Have a great rest of your day.